Rain pounded the cracked pavement like bullets from heaven, each drop exploding into 1,000 smaller pieces as 8-year-old Amara Johnson pressed her small frame against the cold brick wall of the apartment building. Her worn sneakers had given up their fight against the water hours ago, and now her socks squelched with every desperate step she took toward the street corner. The yellow taxi sign she had been waiting for seemed like a cruel joke now, nothing but a broken promise hanging crooked above the empty cab stand. "Please, someone help," she whispered to the storm, her voice barely audible above the thunder that shook the windows of the run-down neighborhood. In her tiny fist, she clutched 15 crumpled dollar bills, everything she had managed to collect from returning bottles and helping neighbors with small errands over the past month. It was supposed to be enough for a taxi to the hospital where Grandma Rosa lay fighting for her life, but no taxi had come for 2 hours. The sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the red light just as another crack of lightning illuminated the desperate scene. Through the rain-streaked window, Jonathan Reed barely noticed the small figure on the sidewalk as he finished his conference call with Tokyo investors. His mind was focused on quarterly reports and market projections, the kind of problems that could be solved with money and strategy. At 34 he had built Reed Technologies into a billion-dollar empire, but tonight he was just another tired businessman trying to get home to his empty penthouse. Amara's heart jumped when she saw the dark car slow down near the corner. Through the storm she could make out the sleek shape and the professional way it moved through traffic. Her young mind, desperate and running on hope rather than logic, made a split-second decision that would change everything. This had to be one of those fancy taxi services she had heard about, the kind rich people used when regular cabs would not come to neighborhoods like hers. Without hesitation, she ran toward the car, her small hands slapping against the passenger window as Jonathan reached for his coffee. The sudden sound made him jump, and he looked out to see a young African-American girl with cornrows soaked flat against her head, her big brown eyes wide with desperation and hope. She was mouthing something he could not understand, pointing frantically down the street. How could anyone ignore a child in need like this? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe and tell us in the comments what you would have done in Jonathan's situation. Jonathan rolled down his window slightly, just enough to hear her voice over the storm. "Please, mister, I need to get to General Hospital. My grandma is really sick and I have money for the fare," Amara said, holding up her wet bills with hands that shook from cold and fear. The businessman in Jonathan's head told him to roll up the window and drive away. This was not his problem and he had a meeting to prepare for. But something about the determination in this little girl's eyes stopped him. She could not be more than 8 years old, yet here she was in the middle of a storm, ready to pay a stranger to take her to the hospital. Most adults would have given up and gone home by now. "I'm not a taxi," Jonathan said gently, but Amara's face crumpled like a paper bag in the rain. "Please sir, I've been waiting for hours. The taxi company said they don't come to this area after dark, and the buses stopped running. My grandma Rosa, she's all I have, and the hospital called to say she's getting worse." Tears mixed with raindrops on her cheeks. "I promise I can pay you. I have $15. Jonathan looked at this child, really looked at her for the first time. Her clothes were old but clean, her shoes had holes but she had tried to patch them with tape, and despite everything she stood straight with a dignity that reminded him of someone he could not quite place. Something deep in his chest moved in a way it had not moved in years. "Get in," he said, reaching over to open the passenger door. "Put your seatbelt on." Amara's eyes went wide with gratitude as she climbed into the warm leather interior. She had never been in a car this nice before. Everything smelled like expensive cologne and new leather, and the seats were softer than her bed at home. She fumbled with the seatbelt, her small fingers still shaking from the cold. "Thank you, mister." "Thank you so much," she said, trying to hand him the wet bills. "Here's the money for the ride." Jonathan gently pushed her hand away. "Keep your money. What's your name?" "Amara Johnson, sir. And you're the kindest taxi driver I ever met." Despite everything, Jonathan found himself almost smiling. "I'm not a taxi driver, Amara. I'm Jonathan. Jonathan Reed. Now tell me about your grandma while I drive." As the Mercedes pulled away from the corner, neither of them could have imagined that this moment of kindness would uncover a truth that had been buried for 8 years, a truth that would transform both of their lives in ways they never thought possible. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm of change that was about to sweep through their world. The hospital loomed ahead through the rain, its lights cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. But the real beacon was sitting right there in the passenger seat, a little girl whose courage had just set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. The automatic doors of General Hospital whooshed open as Jonathan and Amara rushed inside, their clothes still dripping from the storm. The harsh fluorescent lights made everything look pale and sterile, but Amara moved through the corridors with the confidence of someone who had been here many times before. Jonathan followed, surprised by how naturally he had fallen into the role of this child's protector. Room 314, Amara said to the elevator buttons, then looked up at Jonathan with eyes that held too much worry for someone so young. Grandma Rosa has been sick for 3 months now. The doctors say her heart is getting weaker, but she keeps fighting because of me. The elevator climbed slowly, and Jonathan found himself studying Amara's profile. There was something familiar about the shape of her nose, the way she held her chin up when she was trying to be brave. He shook the thought away. He was just being emotional after a long day. Room 314 was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. In the narrow hospital bed lay an elderly African-American woman, her gray hair spread across the pillow like silver threads. Even in sleep, Rosa Johnson's face carried the strength of someone who had weathered many storms. Amara approached the bed carefully, taking her grandmother's hand. "Grandma Rosa, I'm here," she whispered. "I brought someone who helped me get through the storm." Rosa's eyes opened slowly, focusing first on Amara and then moving to Jonathan. For just a moment, her expression changed to something Jonathan could not read. Surprise maybe. Or recognition. "Baby girl, you're soaked to the bone," Rosa said in a voice made rough by illness and breathing tubes. "You should not have come out in this weather." "I had to come, Grandma. The nurse called and said you were asking for me." Amara squeezed the older woman's hand. "This is Jonathan. He gave me a ride when no taxi would come." Rosa's eyes studied Jonathan carefully, taking in his expensive suit, his kind face, the way he stayed respectfully near the door. "Mr. Jonathan, thank you for helping my grandbaby. Not many people would stop for a little girl in the rain." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Jonathan said, stepping closer to the bed. But Rosa shook her head slowly. "No, sir. Most people drive right past. But you stopped, and that tells me something about your heart." She looked between Jonathan and Amara, and again that strange expression crossed her face. "Amara, honey, why don't you go get yourself some hot chocolate from the machine down the hall? I need to thank Mr. Jonathan properly." Amara hesitated. She never left her grandmother's side during visits, but something in Rosa's tone told her this was important. "Okay, Grandma. Do you want anything? Just bring yourself back to me, baby girl." When Amara's footsteps disappeared down the hallway, Rosa turned her full attention to Jonathan. The monitors beeping around her seemed to slow as she studied his face with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle. "Mr. Reed," she said, and Jonathan started. He had not told her his last name. "Yes, I know who you are. I've seen your picture in the newspapers. The youngest tech billionaire in the state, they call you." "I don't understand," Jonathan said, moving closer to the bed. "Have we met before?" Rosa was quiet for a long moment, her eyes never leaving his face. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. 8 years ago you knew a young woman named Keisha Johnson. She was my daughter." The name hit Jonathan like a physical blow. Keisha. Beautiful, laughing Keisha, who had worked at the coffee shop near his first office. They had dated for 3 months during the early days of his company, when he was working 18-hour days and living on caffeine and dreams. She had been sunshine in his gray world of code and investors. But when his company started taking off, demanding more time and travel, they had drifted apart. "Keisha," he said softly. "I remember her. We lost touch when my business grew. I always wondered what happened to her." Rosa's eyes filled with tears. "She died in a car accident when Amara was 6 months old. Never got the chance to tell you about the baby." The words seemed to echo in the small hospital room. Jonathan felt the floor shift beneath him, felt the careful order of his world tilt sideways. "Baby? Amara is your daughter, Mr. Reed? Keisha found out she was pregnant a week after you two stopped seeing each other. She was going to tell you, but then your company went national and you were on the cover of magazines, traveling to meetings with important people. She felt like she would be bothering you with problems from your past." Jonathan sank into the visitor's chair, his mind racing. Amara. His daughter. The little girl who had mistaken his car for a taxi, who had stood in the rain with $15 and more courage than most adults he knew. The little girl who looked like him around the eyes now that he really thought about it. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Because I'm dying, Mr. Reed. My heart is giving out and Amara needs family. She needs her father." Rosa's voice grew stronger, as if talking about her granddaughter gave her energy. "I've raised her the best I could on a fixed income, but she deserves more than I can give her. She's smart as a whip, dreams of being a doctor someday. But after I'm gone, You're not going anywhere, Jonathan said quickly, but Rosa smiled sadly. Honey, I know what the doctors aren't saying out loud. I've got weeks, maybe a month if I'm lucky. I need to know that Amara will be okay. The sound of small footsteps in the hallway announced Amara's return. She appeared in the doorway with a steaming cup of hot chocolate, her face brightening when she saw that Rosa was awake and talking. Grandma Rosa, you look better, she said, settling into her usual spot beside the bed. Mr. Jonathan, do you want some hot chocolate? They have a machine that makes it really good. Jonathan looked at this little girl, his daughter, and felt something shift inside his chest. 8 years of her life had passed without him, 8 years of bedtime stories and scraped knees and proud moments that he had missed. But she was here now, offering him hot chocolate with the same generosity that had made her share her last $15 with a stranger. I would love some, he said, and Amara's smile could have powered the entire hospital. As she ran back down the hall to get another cup, Rosa reached out and touched Jonathan's hand. She's got your stubborn streak and your kind heart. Don't let pride or fear keep you from being the father she needs. Jonathan squeezed the old woman's hand gently. What do I need to do? First, we need to make sure she's taken care of no matter what happens to me. Then when you're ready we tell her the truth. But Jonathan, she's been through enough loss. Don't make promises you can't keep. I won't, Jonathan said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. I won't let her down. Through the window the storm was beginning to clear, but inside room 314, a different kind of storm was just beginning. The kind that changes everything, that takes 3 strangers and turns them into a family whether they're ready or not. 3 days after the hospital visit, Jonathan sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor of the Reed Technologies building, staring out at the city skyline without really seeing it. The stack of contracts on his desk remained untouched, and his assistant had rescheduled 2 important meetings. All he could think about was Amara and the way she had carefully counted out those wet dollar bills, determined to do whatever it took to reach her grandmother. His phone buzzed with a text from the private investigator he had quietly hired. Initial report ready. Can meet this afternoon. Jonathan had wrestled with the decision to investigate Rosa's claims, but he needed to know the truth before he made any life-changing decisions. Too much was at stake to rely on emotion alone. The investigator, Maria Santos, was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for thorough, discreet work. She arrived at Jonathan's office with a thick manila folder and the serious expression of someone who had uncovered significant information. Mr. Reed, I've spent the last 3 days looking into the Johnson family, she began, settling into the chair across from his desk. Everything Rosa Johnson told you appears to be completely accurate. She opened the folder and spread out documents like a detective laying out evidence. There were hospital records, school transcripts, official documents, and photographs. Jonathan's breath caught when he saw a picture of Keisha holding a baby with huge dark eyes and a familiar stubborn chin. Keisha Johnson gave birth to Amara 8 years and 4 months ago at General Hospital. The father's name is listed as unknown on the birth certificate, but I found medical records indicating she was approximately 3 months pregnant when your relationship ended. Maria pulled out a timeline she had constructed. According to her friends and co-workers, Keisha discovered the pregnancy about a week after you two stopped seeing each other. She spent several weeks trying to work up the courage to contact you, but by then Reed Technologies had just landed that major government contract and you were being featured in business magazines. She felt intimidated, Jonathan said, understanding beginning to dawn. Exactly. Her best friend, Angela Martinez, told me that Keisha felt like she would be seen as someone trying to trap you or take advantage of your success. She decided to raise the baby on her own rather than complicate your life. Jonathan studied a photograph of Keisha pushing a young Amara on a playground swing. Both of them were laughing, Keisha's hair catching the sunlight the same way he remembered from their coffee shop dates. What happened after Amara was born? Keisha was a good mother by all accounts. She worked 2 jobs to support herself and the baby, lived with her mother Rosa to help with childcare costs. She was saving money to go back to school, wanted to become a nurse. Maria's voice softened. The accident happened on a Tuesday night. She was driving home from her evening job at a restaurant when a drunk driver ran a red light. She died instantly. The words hit Jonathan harder than he had expected. He had often wondered over the years what had become of Keisha, had even considered looking her up a few times. Now he would never have the chance to apologize for being too focused on his business to fight for their relationship. Rosa Johnson became Amara's legal guardian, Maria continued. She was working as a school custodian then, eligible for a small pension. They've been living in a one-bedroom apartment in the Riverside district for the past 7 years. Rosa's health problems started about 6 months ago. What kind of financial situation are they in? Jonathan asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Rosa's pension covers basic living expenses barely. They have no savings, no insurance beyond basic Medicaid. Amara qualifies for free lunch at school, and they shop at food banks when money gets tight. Maria pulled out another document. Rosa has been trying to hide the extent of her illness from Amara, but the medical bills are piling up. She owes the hospital nearly $15,000 already. Jonathan made a note on his calendar. The money was not a problem, but he needed to handle this carefully. Rosa had her pride, and he did not want to insult her by throwing money at the situation without addressing the bigger picture. "Tell me about Amara," he said. Maria's stern expression softened into something like fondness. "Exceptional kid, Mr. Reed. She's in the gifted program at her school, maintains straight A's despite everything she's dealing with at home. Her teachers describe her as mature beyond her years, always helping other students, never complains about anything." She pulled out a school photograph that made Jonathan's chest tighten. Amara smiled at the camera with confidence and warmth, her dark eyes bright with intelligence and hope. She wore a simple blue dress that was clean but clearly secondhand, her hair braided with care despite their limited resources. She has friends, but she doesn't participate in extracurricular activities because Rosa can't afford the fees or transportation. She walks to school every day about a mile each way, and she has a part-time job helping at the corner market after school. The owner, Mrs. Park, pays her in groceries mostly. She's 8 years old and she has a job? Jonathan felt anger rising in his chest, not at Amara or Rosa, but at a system that forced a child to work to help her family survive. Mrs. Park describes it more as helping out, but yes, Amara stocks shelves and helps customers find items. She's apparently very good with numbers and money. Maria smiled slightly. Mrs. Park told me that Amara always knows exactly how much everything costs and can make change faster than the register. Jonathan thought about his own childhood, the private schools and tutors, the summer camps and college prep courses. He had never wanted for anything, had never even thought about money except as something that grew his business. The contrast between his experience and Amara's made him feel both guilty and proud. Guilty that his daughter had struggled while he lived in luxury, but proud that she had responded to those struggles with strength and determination rather than bitterness. "What about legally?" he asked. "If Rosa's condition worsens, what happens to Amara?" Maria's expression grew serious. "That's the urgent part, Mr. Reed. Rosa has no other living relatives. If something happens to her, Amara becomes a ward of the state. She would go into foster care, and given the shortage of good foster homes in this area, there's no guarantee she would end up somewhere safe or stable." The thought of Amara in the foster care system made Jonathan feel physically sick. This brave little girl who had stood in the rain with $15, who worked after school to help her family, who maintained perfect grades despite everything she was dealing with, deserved so much better. "I need to meet with Rosa again," he said. "Privately while Amara is at school. We need to discuss the future. There's one more thing, Mr. Reed." Maria hesitated, then pulled out a final photograph. It showed Amara at what looked like a school science fair, standing proudly next to a project about solar energy. Her smile was radiant, her posture confident. "Her teacher told me that when they asked the students what they wanted to be when they grew up, Amara said she wanted to be a doctor who helps sick grandparents get better." Jonathan stared at the photograph for a long time. His daughter wanted to be a doctor. She was brilliant and kind and determined, and she had spent her short life taking care of the person who took care of her. She deserved every opportunity in the world, and he was in a position to give those opportunities to her. "Thank you, Maria. This is exactly what I needed to know." After the investigator left, Jonathan sat alone in his office as the sun began to set over the city. Somewhere out there, Amara was walking home from school, probably stopping to help Mrs. Park with the evening inventory. Rosa was likely preparing their simple dinner, trying to hide how much the effort exhausted her. His daughter. His brilliant, brave, beautiful daughter who had mistaken his car for a taxi and changed both their lives forever. Jonathan reached for his phone to call his lawyer. There were arrangements to be made, legal documents to be prepared, and a future to secure. But first, he had a promise to keep to a sick old woman who had entrusted him with the most precious thing in her world. The following Monday morning, Jonathan arrived at General Hospital with a briefcase full of documents and a heart full of determination. He had spent the weekend with his lawyers, setting up medical trusts and educational funds, making arrangements that would ensure Amara's future regardless of what happened to Rosa. Now came the harder part, convincing Rosa to accept help from the man who had unknowingly fathered her granddaughter. Rosa was sitting up in bed when he arrived, looking frilier than she had just days before. The morning sunlight streaming through the window highlighted the gray undertones in her dark skin, and her breathing seemed more labored. But her eyes were still sharp, still filled with the intelligence and strength that had carried her family through so many struggles. "Mr. Reed," she said, managing a smile. "I wasn't sure you'd come back." "I told you I wouldn't let Amara down," Jonathan said, pulling a chair close to the bed. "I've spent the last few days making some arrangements, and I need to discuss them with you." Rosa studied his face carefully. "What kind of arrangements?" Jonathan opened his briefcase and pulled out the first set of documents. "First, your medical bills. I've paid everything you owe to the hospital and set up an account to cover any future treatments. The doctors tell me there are some experimental therapies that might help your heart condition, but they're expensive and not covered by insurance." "Mr. Reed, I can't accept," Rosa began, but Jonathan held up his hand gently. "You told me that Amara needs family. Well, family takes care of each other. This is what I can do to take care of both of you." He pulled out another document. "I've also set up an educational trust for Amara. It will cover private school tuition, college expenses, medical school if that's what she chooses, everything she needs to chase those dreams of becoming a doctor." Tears began to form in Rosa's eyes. "You barely know her. Why would you do all this?" "Because she's my daughter," Jonathan said simply. "Because I missed the first 8 years of her life, and I want to make sure she has every opportunity for the rest of it. And because you raised an incredible little girl under impossible circumstances. You deserve help, Rosa. You've earned it." Rosa was quiet for a long moment, staring at the documents in Jonathan's hands. "There's something else I need to tell you," she said finally. "Something about Keisha and why she never reached out to you." Jonathan waited, sensing that whatever Rosa was about to share would be difficult for her. "Keisha didn't just feel intimidated by your success," Rosa began slowly. "She was scared. When she was 17, she dated a boy from a wealthy family. When she got pregnant with his baby, his parents paid for the abortion and threatened to destroy our family if she ever contacted their son again." The words hit Jonathan like a physical blow. "She had another child before Amara?" "She lost the baby," Rosa said quietly. "The procedure went wrong and she almost died. The doctors told her she might never have children again, so when Amara came along, Keisha saw her as a miracle." Rosa wiped away a tear. But the experience left her terrified of wealthy men and their families. She was convinced that if she told you about Amara, you would either reject the baby or try to take her away. Jonathan felt sick thinking about what Keisha had endured, about the fear that had kept her from reaching out when she needed help. "I would never have rejected Amara. I would have been there for both of them." "I know that now," Rosa said. "I can see it in how you've responded to her. But Keisha was young and scared and she had been hurt before. She thought she was protecting Amara by keeping her away from your world." A soft knock on the door interrupted their conversation. A young nurse peered in. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to run some tests. Dr. Martinez wants to check your heart function again." Rosa nodded, but as the nurse began preparing equipment, she reached out and grabbed Jonathan's hand. "Promise me something," she whispered urgently. "If something happens to me, don't let them put Amara in foster care. I know you're a good man, but promise me you'll fight for her." "I promise," Jonathan said without hesitation. "I'll take care of her, Rosa. She'll never be alone." The tests took most of the morning and Jonathan waited in the family lounge, his mind racing with everything Rosa had told him. He understood now why Keisha had been afraid to contact him, why she had chosen to struggle alone rather than risk having her daughter taken away by people who saw money as more important than love. Dr. Martinez found him there around noon, his expression serious. "Mr. Reed, Mrs. Johnson asked me to speak with you about her condition." Jonathan stood, bracing himself for bad news. "How is she?" "Her heart is failing faster than we expected. The test this morning shows significant deterioration since her last admission. We're talking about days, maybe a week or two at most." The doctor sat down heavily. "She's refusing to let us contact social services about Amara. She says you're handling the arrangements?" "Yes," Jonathan said firmly. "Amara won't need foster care. I'm her father." Dr. Martinez raised his eyebrows. "I see. Well, that changes things considerably. Mrs. Johnson has been worried about what would happen to the child. If your family—" "I am," Jonathan said. And I'm going to make sure Amara has everything she needs. When Jonathan returned to Rosa's room, she was sleeping, but she woke when he sat down beside the bed. "How much time do we have?" he asked gently. "Not long," Rosa admitted. "But long enough to help Amara understand. She's going to need time to process everything, to grieve, to get used to the idea of having a father." "When do we tell her?" "Soon. Maybe tonight when she comes for her visit. She deserves to know the truth before." Rosa's voice trailed off, but they both understood. That evening, Amara arrived at the hospital with her homework and a drawing she had made in art class. It showed 3 stick figures standing in front of a house with a big sun overhead. "It's me, you, and Mr. Jonathan," she explained to Rosa. "My teacher said to draw a picture of people who make me happy." Jonathan felt his throat tighten looking at the simple drawing. Somehow, this little girl had found a place for him in her life and her heart, even though they had known each other for less than a week. "Amara, honey," Rosa said gently, "Mr. Jonathan and I need to talk to you about something very important. Can you sit down and listen carefully?" Amara looked between them with serious eyes, sensing the weight of the moment. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby girl. You're not in trouble. But there are some things about your family that you need to know." As Rosa began to tell Amara the truth about her parentage, Jonathan watched his daughter's face carefully. He saw confusion, then surprise, then a flicker of something that might have been hope. This brave little girl who had already faced so much loss was about to learn that her world was changing again, but this time, maybe the change would bring her the family she had always deserved. The next morning brought news that would accelerate everything. Dr. Martinez called Jonathan at 6 a.m. with urgent information. Rosa had suffered another cardiac episode during the night and was now in critical condition. They had stabilized her, but her time was running out faster than anyone had anticipated. Jonathan arrived at the hospital to find Amara sitting in the waiting room, still in her school clothes from the day before. Mrs. Park from the corner market sat beside her, having rushed over when the hospital called the emergency contact number Rosa had given them. "Mr. Jonathan," Amara said, jumping up when she saw him. Her eyes were red from crying, but she stood straight with that familiar dignity. "Grandma Rosa is really sick. The doctors say I can't see her right now because they're doing medical stuff." Jonathan knelt down to her level, his heart breaking at the fear and confusion in her young face. "I know, sweetheart. But she's getting the best care possible, and she wants you to know that she loves you very much. Mrs. Park says I might have to go stay with strangers if Grandma Rosa can't take care of me anymore," Amara whispered. "But you said you would help us. You said family takes care of family." The trust in her voice nearly undid him. This little girl was counting on him, and he would not let her down. "You're not going to stay with strangers, Amara? I promise you that." Mrs. Park, a kind-faced Korean woman in her 60s, stood and extended her hand to Jonathan. "You must be Mr. Reed. Rosa told me about you yesterday when I brought Amara to visit. She said you might be able to help with arrangements." "I'm working on it," Jonathan assured her. "Can you stay with Amara for a few more hours? I need to handle some legal matters." "Of course. Amara can help me with inventory at the store. It will keep her mind busy." After ensuring Amara was safely settled at the corner market, Jonathan drove straight to his lawyer's office. The DNA test he had quietly arranged 3 days earlier was scheduled to be processed that afternoon, but given Rosa's critical condition, he needed to expedite everything. "We need emergency custody papers prepared," he told his lawyer, Patricia Wong. "And I need that DNA test rushed through today, not tomorrow." Patricia had been Jonathan's lawyer for 5 years and had handled everything from corporate mergers to his personal estate planning. She was used to his decisive nature, but this situation was unprecedented. "Jonathan, emergency custody is a serious legal step. Are you absolutely certain you want to take on this level of responsibility?" "She's my daughter, Patricia. I'm certain." The DNA lab was located across town, in a nondescript building that processed tests for half the city's legal cases. The technician, Dr. Sarah Kim, understood the urgency and agreed to run the test immediately using the samples Jonathan had provided, his hair follicle and a small sample from Amara's drinking cup that he had collected with Rosa's permission. "Results will be ready in 3 hours, Dr. Kim assured him. "I'll call you the moment we have confirmation." Those 3 hours felt like the longest of Jonathan's life. He returned to the hospital to check on Rosa, who was unconscious but stable, then went to the corner market to see Amara. He found her behind the counter, carefully counting change for a customer with the precision of someone twice her age. "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. Your change is $3.47, Amara said politely, handing over the money with a smile that lit up her whole face despite everything she was going through. After the customer left, Amara turned to Jonathan with excitement. Mrs. Park is teaching me how to use the cash register. She says I'm a natural at business. Maybe I could be a doctor who also runs a store to help sick people get medicine they need. Jonathan's heart swelled with pride and love for this remarkable little girl who could find opportunity and hope in the middle of crisis. That's a wonderful idea, Amara. You could help a lot of people that way. His phone rang at exactly 3:17 p.m. Dr. Kim's voice was professional but warm. Mr. Reed, I have your results. The DNA test shows a 99.97% probability of paternity. Congratulations, you are definitely Amara's biological father. Even though he had been expecting this confirmation, hearing the official results made everything real in a way that took his breath away. Amara was his daughter. The little girl who had mistaken his car for a taxi was his flesh and blood, his family, his responsibility and his joy. Thank you, Dr. Kim. Please send the official documents to my lawyer immediately. Jonathan looked across the store at Amara, who was now helping Mrs. Park arrange canned goods on a shelf. She moved with careful precision, making sure each label faced forward, organizing by size and type without being asked. His daughter. His brilliant, caring, determined daughter who deserved every good thing the world had to offer. Amara, he called softly. Can you come here for a minute? She walked over with that serious expression she got when adults needed to talk to her about important things. Is it about Grandma Rosa? Did something happen? Grandma Rosa is stable right now, Jonathan said, kneeling down so they were eye to eye. But I got some news that I want to share with you. Remember what Grandma Rosa told you yesterday about your father? Amara nodded solemnly. She said my daddy might be someone I already met, someone who cares about me. That's right. Amara, I just got confirmation from the doctors who do special tests. I am your father. You're my daughter and I love you very much. For a moment, Amara just stared at him, processing this information with the same careful consideration she applied to everything else in her young life. Then, slowly, a smile began to spread across her face. Does this mean I don't have to go live with strangers? She asked. It means you never have to worry about that again. You're going to live with me and I'm going to take care of you forever. Amara threw her arms around his neck with such force that it nearly knocked him over. I wanted it to be you, she whispered against his shoulder. When Grandma Rosa said my daddy cared about me, I hoped it was you because you came to help me in the rain. Jonathan held his daughter close, feeling 8 years of missed hugs and bedtime stories and proud moments all condensed into this one perfect embrace. I'm here now, sweetheart. I'm here and I'm never going anywhere. Mrs. Park watched from across the store, tears streaming down her kind face. This is good, she said in her accented English. This is very good for Amara. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of legal paperwork and medical consultations. Patricia Wong expedited the custody papers, using the DNA results and Rosa's written consent to establish Jonathan as Amara's legal guardian. Dr. Martinez explained Rosa's condition in terms that an 8-year-old could understand while still being honest about the gravity of the situation. Your grandmother's heart is very tired, he told Amara gently. We're doing everything we can to help her, but you should spend time with her while you can. That evening Jonathan and Amara sat beside Rosa's bed. Rosa was awake but weak, her breathing shallow and labored. Still, she managed to smile when she saw them together. Look at you two, she whispered. Already looking like a real family. Grandma Rosa, Mr. Jonathan? I mean Daddy, he says I can live with him and I don't have to go to foster care, Amara said, holding both Rosa's hand and Jonathan's. And he's going to help pay for your heart medicine so you can get better. Rosa squeezed Amara's small hand. Baby girl, I need you to listen to me carefully. The medicine might not work for me but that's okay. What matters is that you're going to be safe and loved. Your daddy is going to give you opportunities one never could, help you become that doctor you dream of being. But I want you to get better too, Amara said, her voice breaking slightly. I know you do, sweetheart. But sometimes the most loving thing we can do is let go when it's time. Rosa looked at Jonathan over Amara's head. You take care of my baby girl. She's got your stubborn streak, so don't let her get away with everything. I won't, Jonathan promised. She'll have rules and chores and homework just like any other kid. Good. She needs normal along with all the opportunities you can give her. Rosa turned back to Amara. And you, young lady, you mind your daddy and work hard in school. Make me proud. I will, Grandma Rosa. I promise I'll become a doctor and help people just like you taught me. They stayed at the hospital until visiting hours ended, talking about everything and nothing, making memories that would have to last. Rosa told Jonathan stories about Amara's childhood, about her first words and her first day of school, about the time she tried to give away her lunch to a classmate who forgot theirs. "She's always been like that," Rosa said. "Always thinking about other people before herself. Don't let the world change that about her." "I won't," Jonathan promised. "I'll make sure she stays kind while still learning to take care of herself." When they finally left the hospital that night, Amara fell asleep in the passenger seat of Jonathan's Mercedes, exhausted by the emotional weight of the day. Jonathan drove carefully through the quiet streets, glancing over at his daughter every few minutes, still amazed by the miracle of finding her. He thought about the storm that had brought them together, about the split-second decision Amara had made to approach his car. If she had been less brave, less desperate, less trusting, they might never have met. He would have continued his successful but empty life while she struggled alone in a world that offered few opportunities to children like her. Instead, they had found each other. A billionaire CEO and an 8-year-old girl who had mistaken his luxury car for a taxi had discovered they were family, connected by love and loss and the kind of courage that changes everything. As Jonathan pulled into the parking garage of his downtown penthouse, Amara stirred awake. "Daddy?" she said sleepily, and the word hit him like a gift he had never expected to receive. "Yes, sweetheart? Are we really going to be okay?" Jonathan looked at his daughter, this brave little girl who had already survived so much and still believed in happy endings. "We're going to be better than okay, Amara. We're going to be family." The next morning, Jonathan woke up in his guest bedroom while Amara slept peacefully in his master suite. He had insisted she take the bigger room with the better view, and she had fallen asleep clutching a stuffed elephant that Rosa had made for her years ago. The sight of his daughter in his home, safe and sound, filled him with a contentment he had never experienced in all his years of business success. His phone rang early and Dr. Martinez's voice carried the weight of difficult news. "Mr. Reed, you should come to the hospital. Mrs. Johnson's condition has deteriorated significantly overnight. She's asked for you and Amara." Jonathan's heart sank, but he tried to keep his voice steady as he gently woke Amara. She understood immediately what the phone call meant and dressed quickly in the new clothes Jonathan had bought her the evening before. The simple blue dress fit perfectly and made her look older somehow, more grown-up than any 8-year-old should have to be. They arrived at the hospital to find Rosa awake but clearly struggling. Her breathing was labored, and the monitors around her bed showed erratic patterns that even Amara could recognize as concerning. But Rosa's eyes were clear, and she smiled when she saw them enter the room together. "There's my family," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the medical equipment. "Come here, both of you." Jonathan and Amara approached the bed carefully. Rosa reached out with trembling hands to touch both of their faces, as if she was memorizing them. "Amara, baby girl, I need you to be strong for me today. Can you do that?" Amara nodded, though tears were already forming in her young eyes. "I can be strong, Grandma Rosa. But I don't want you to leave me." "I know, sweetheart. But remember what I always told you about love? Love doesn't end when people leave. It stays in your heart forever and it grows stronger when you share it with other people." Rosa looked meaningfully at Jonathan. "You have so much love to share now. With your daddy, with the friends you'll make, with the patients you'll help when you become that doctor. Will you watch me become a doctor?" Amara asked, her voice small and hopeful. "I'll watch everything, baby girl. From wherever I am, I'll be so proud of everything you accomplish." Rosa turned to Jonathan, her expression becoming more urgent. "I need to tell you some things about raising her. Things Keisha would have wanted you to know." Jonathan pulled out his phone and opened the Notes app. "Tell me everything." For the next hour, Rosa shared 8 years of motherly wisdom. She told him about Amara's fear of thunderstorms and how a nightlight shaped like a star helped her sleep. She explained that Amara was lactose intolerant but loved chocolate soy milk, that she was advanced in math but struggled with spelling, that she had a birthmark shaped like a heart on her left shoulder that Keisha used to kiss every night before bed. "She's never had a birthday party with other children," Rosa said sadly. "We couldn't afford it. But she's always wanted one with a chocolate cake and games and friends from school. She'll have the best birthday party," Jonathan promised. "Every year from now on. And Christmas, she still believes in Santa Claus. I couldn't afford much, but I always made sure there was something under our little tree from Santa. Don't let her lose that magic too soon." Jonathan wrote down everything, understanding that these details were precious gifts Rosa was entrusting to him. The knowledge of how to care for his daughter, how to preserve the childhood wonder that had survived despite all of Amara's hardships. What would you have done in Jonathan's position? suddenly becoming a single father to a child you'd never known existed. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to see how this family story unfolds. There's one more thing, Rosa said, her voice growing weaker. In my apartment there's a shoebox under my bed. It has pictures of Keisha and letters she wrote to Amara's father. To you, that she never sent. I saved them because I thought someday Amara might want to know what her mother was thinking. I'll get them, Jonathan promised. I'll make sure Amara knows how much her mother loved her. Rosa closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her strength. When she opened them again she focused on Amara with intense love. Baby girl, come give Grandma Rosa the biggest hug you've ever given anyone. Amara climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of all the tubes and wires, and wrapped her small arms around her grandmother's frail frame. I love you so much, Grandma Rosa. Thank you for taking care of me all these years. Thank you for being the light of my life, sweet girl. You made every hard day worth it. Rosa held Amara close, then gently guided her back to Jonathan's side. Now you take care of your daddy, okay? He's new at this parent thing, so be patient with him. Amara managed a small smile. I'll teach him how to make grilled cheese sandwiches the way you taught me. That's my girl. Rosa looked at Jonathan one last time. She's the best thing Keisha and I ever did. Don't let anyone ever make her feel like she's not good enough for your world. She's better than all of it. She's perfect exactly as she is, Jonathan said firmly. I'll make sure she always knows that. Rosa nodded, seeming satisfied. She closed her eyes and took a deep, peaceful breath. I'm tired now. I think I'll rest for a while. They stayed with her for another hour, holding her hands and telling her stories about the future they were planning together. Jonathan described the house he was going to buy, with a big backyard and a room just for Amara's books. Amara talked about the medical school she wanted to attend and how she would name her first hospital after Grandma Rosa. Rosa listened with a peaceful smile, occasionally squeezing their hands to show she could hear them. As the afternoon sun slanted through the hospital window, her breathing gradually became slower and more peaceful. At 3:42 p.m., Rosa Johnson passed away quietly, surrounded by love and knowing that her granddaughter would be safe and cherished. Amara cried softly against Jonathan's shoulder while he held her close, both of them grieving the loss of a woman who had given everything for the little girl who was now his whole world. Dr. Martinez came in to handle the official procedures, speaking gently to Amara about what would happen next. Your grandmother wasn't in pain, he assured her. She was peaceful and she was happy because she knew you were going to be okay. That evening Jonathan and Amara returned to his penthouse to begin their new life together as a family. It was not how either of them had imagined it would start, with grief mixed into the hope, but Rosa had given them the foundation they needed to build something beautiful together. As Amara fell asleep that night in what was now her bedroom, she whispered, Daddy, do you think Grandma Rosa is watching us? I know she is, Jonathan replied, tucking the covers around his daughter. And I think she's very happy about what she sees. Good, Amara said sleepily. I want her to see us become a real family. We already are a real family, sweetheart. Love is what makes a family and we have plenty of that. Outside the window, the city lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere in that vast sky, Rosa Johnson was indeed watching, proud beyond measure of the family she had helped bring together through courage, love, and a little girl's mistake that changed everything. 2 weeks after Rosa's funeral, Jonathan stood in the kitchen of his penthouse at 6:30 in the morning, staring at a cookbook open to a page titled, Perfect Pancakes for Kids. He had successfully managed billion-dollar mergers, but somehow the prospect of making breakfast for his 8-year-old daughter felt more intimidating than any board meeting he had ever attended. Amara appeared in the doorway wearing one of the new school uniforms he had bought for her admission to Riverside Academy, a prestigious private school known for its excellent academics and nurturing environment. Her hair was braided in the same careful pattern Rosa had taught her, and she carried her new backpack with the kind of reverence most people reserved for precious artifacts. Good morning, Daddy, she said, settling onto one of the tall kitchen stools. Are you making pancakes? Mrs. Park taught me how to make them last week when I helped at the store. Jonathan looked at his daughter, then at the cookbook, then back at Amara. Would you like to show me? I'm still learning how to cook things that aren't just reheated from expensive restaurants. Amara's face lit up with the kind of joy that came from being needed rather than just cared for. I can teach you. Grandma Rosa always said the best way to learn something is to do it with someone who cares about you. For the next 30 minutes, they worked side by side in the gleaming kitchen. Amara stood on a step stool, measuring flour and milk with the precision she brought to everything, while Jonathan followed her careful instructions. She showed him how to test the pan temperature with a drop of water, how to know when the bubbles meant it was time to flip, how to keep the finished pancakes warm in the oven. These are really good, Jonathan said, genuinely surprised by their success. How did you get so good at cooking? Grandma Rosa taught me lots of things because she said I needed to be able to take care of myself, Amara explained, cutting her pancakes into neat, equal pieces. She showed me how to do laundry and clean and make simple food. She said independence was the most important gift she could give me. Jonathan felt a pang of sadness thinking about how much responsibility this little girl had carried, but also profound respect for Rosa's wisdom in preparing Amara for life's challenges. Well, now you can teach me those things too, he said. I never learned to do my own laundry either. I always sent it out or had someone else handle it. Really? Amara looked amazed. But you're a grown-up who runs a whole big company. Being good at business doesn't automatically make you good at regular life things, Jonathan admitted. I'm going to need your help learning how to be a good dad. This honesty seemed to please Amara enormously. She finished her breakfast with obvious satisfaction, then carefully rinsed her plate and put it in the dishwasher without being asked. Daddy, can I ask you something? She said as they prepared to leave for school. You can ask me anything, sweetheart. Why didn't you know about me before? Were you mad at my mama? The question Jonathan had been dreading hit him with surprising gentleness. Amara's tone held curiosity rather than accusation, the same straightforward approach she brought to everything else in her life. I wasn't mad at your mama at all, he said, kneeling down to her level. Your mama and I cared about each other very much, but we were both young and scared about different things. When she found out she was going to have you, she thought I was too busy with my work to want a family. She didn't know that having you would have been the most important thing in the world to me. Amara considered this carefully. So she was trying to protect me by not telling you? That's right. She wanted to make sure you were loved and safe, and she thought the best way to do that was to take care of you herself with Grandma Rosa. But now you know about me and you want to take care of me too? More than anything, Jonathan said firmly. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Amara. Even though I missed your first 8 years, I'm going to make sure all the rest of your years are full of love and opportunities and everything you dream of. This seemed to satisfy Amara's need for understanding. She picked up her backpack and waited patiently while Jonathan gathered his own work materials. The drive to Riverside Academy took 20 minutes through tree-lined streets where other parents were dropping off their children at one of the city's most exclusive schools. There are a lot of fancy cars here, Amara observed, watching a lineup of luxury vehicles in the circular drive. Does that worry you? Jonathan asked. A little bit, Amara admitted. What if the other kids think I don't belong here because I used to shop at food banks? Jonathan parked the car and turned to face his daughter. Amara, listen to me carefully. You belong anywhere you want to be because you're smart and kind and hardworking. Those are the things that really matter, not how much money your family has. And if anyone makes you feel bad about where you came from, you tell them that your grandmother raised you to be proud of who you are. What if they ask about you being my daddy now when I never talked about having a daddy before? You tell them the truth. That sometimes families come together in unexpected ways, but love is what makes them real. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can talk to me. Amara nodded, gathering her courage the same way she had gathered it that night in the storm. Okay, I'm ready. The school's principal, Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, met them personally at the main office. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and the sort of calm authority that came from decades of working with children from all kinds of backgrounds. Amara, we're so excited to have you join our community, she said warmly. I've reviewed your academic records from your previous school, and I'm very impressed. Your teachers describe you as an exceptional student and a natural leader. Thank you, ma'am, Amara replied politely. I'm excited to learn new things here. Dr. Hayes showed them around the campus, pointing out the science labs, the library, the art studios, and the playground. Everything was clean and modern and designed with children's needs in mind. Other students they passed seemed happy and engaged, working on projects or discussing assignments with obvious enthusiasm. We have a very strong mentorship program here, Dr. Hayes explained to Jonathan. Older students are paired with newer ones to help with the transition. I think Amara would benefit from working with Sophie Chin, one of our 5th graders who also has an interest in science and medicine. That sounds wonderful, Jonathan said, but he was watching Amara's face carefully. She was taking in everything with the same observant intensity she had shown at the hospital and the corner market, processing and evaluating this new environment. Mr. Reed, I understand that Amara has experienced some significant changes in her family situation recently, Dr. Hayes said carefully. We have counselors available if she needs support adjusting to her new circumstances. Thank you. I think having people to talk to would be helpful. After the tour, Dr. Hayes walked them to Amara's new classroom. The teacher, Mrs. Angela Rodriguez, greeted them with genuine warmth and introduced Amara to her new classmates. Jonathan watched through the window as his daughter took her seat, answered questions about herself with quiet confidence, and began working on a math worksheet that she completed faster than most of the other students. "She's going to do beautifully here," Dr. Hayes assured Jonathan as they walked back to the main office. "Children are remarkably resilient, and Amara has clearly been raised with strong values and a love of learning. The combination of her natural abilities and your resources will open every door for her." That afternoon, Jonathan picked Amara up to find her chatting animatedly with Sophie Chin, a confident fifth grader with pigtails and a warm smile. "Daddy, this is Sophie," Amara said excitedly. "She's going to help me learn about all the different clubs and activities here. They have a junior scientist group that studies real medical research, and a volunteer club that helps at the children's hospital." "It sounds like you're going to be very busy," Jonathan said, pleased to see Amara already making connections. On the drive home, Amara chattered about her day, about the advanced math class she had been invited to join, about the teacher who had complimented her essay on community service, about the library that had more books than she had ever seen in one place. "Daddy, do you think Grandma Rosa would be proud of me starting at this school?" "I think Grandma Rosa would be amazed and proud and probably a little worried that you're growing up so fast," Jonathan replied. "But mostly proud. You handled today like the strong, smart girl she raised you to be." That evening they established their first family routine. Homework at the kitchen table while Jonathan answered emails, dinner together with conversation about their days, and bedtime stories in Amara's room before she went to sleep. As Jonathan tucked her in that night, Amara looked up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, I really like living with you and I love you. But sometimes I still feel sad about Grandma Rosa." "It's okay to feel sad, sweetheart. Loving someone means missing them when they're gone. Grandma Rosa would want you to remember her with love, but she would also want you to be happy in your new life. Can we visit her grave this weekend and tell her about my new school?" "Of course we can. That's a beautiful way to honor her memory." As Amara drifted off to sleep, Jonathan sat in the chair beside her bed for a few extra minutes, watching his daughter's peaceful face and marveling at how quickly she had adapted to their new life together. In just 2 weeks she had transformed his empty penthouse into a home, his solitary existence into a family, his successful but hollow life into something rich with meaning and love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities, but tonight, for the first time in years, Jonathan felt like his life was exactly where it was supposed to be. 3 months into their new life together, Jonathan discovered that being a single father was both easier and harder than he had expected. Easier because Amara was remarkably independent and adaptable, harder because he found himself wanting to give her everything she had ever missed while still teaching her the values Rosa had instilled in her. The breakthrough moment came on a Saturday morning in November when Amara padded into the kitchen wearing her pajamas and found Jonathan sitting at the counter with his laptop, working on quarterly reports even though it was supposed to be family time. "Daddy," she said softly, settling onto the stool beside him. "Are you sad about something?" Jonathan looked up from his screen, surprised by the question. "No, sweetheart. Why would you think I'm sad?" "Because you work all the time now, even when we're supposed to be together. Grandma Rosa used to tell me that people work too much when they're trying not to think about things that make them sad." The simple wisdom hit Jonathan like a revelation. He had been so focused on providing for Amara's future that he had started falling back into his old patterns of using work to avoid dealing with emotions. But Amara deserved more than financial security. She deserved his time, his attention, his presence in her daily life. "You know what?" Jonathan said, closing the laptop decisively. "You're absolutely right. Work can wait. What would you like to do today?" Amara's face lit up with surprise and delight. "Really? We can do anything? Anything you want. Can we go to the park and feed the ducks? And maybe get ice cream even though it's cold outside? And can we stop by Mrs. Park's store so I can show her my report card?" All of that sounds perfect. They spent the entire day together, just the two of them, doing simple things that cost almost nothing but meant everything. Amara taught him how to skip stones at the lake, showed him the best techniques for feeding ducks without scaring them, and introduced him to Mrs. Park, who beamed with pride when she saw Amara's straighter report card. "This girl, she is special," Mrs. Park told Jonathan in her accented English. "Even when times were hard, she always smiled, always helped others. You are a lucky man to have such daughter." "I'm the luckiest man in the world," Jonathan agreed, watching Amara carefully arrange a display of canned goods with the same attention to detail she brought to everything. That evening, as they sat together on the couch sharing a bowl of popcorn and watching a movie Amara had chosen, she leaned against his shoulder with complete trust and contentment. "Daddy, this was the best day ever," she said sleepily. "It was pretty great," Jonathan agreed. "We should do more days like this. Can I ask you something kind of serious?" "Of course." Amara was quiet for a moment, organizing her thoughts. "Do you ever wish you had a different kind of kid? Like one who grew up rich and already knew how to act at fancy places?" Jonathan's heart broke a little at the vulnerability in her voice. "Amara, look at me." He waited until she turned to face him completely. "I would not change a single thing about you. Not your history, not your experiences, not the way Rosa raised you. You are brave and kind and smart because of everything you've been through, and I am proud to be your father exactly as you are. Even though I don't know which fork to use at fancy restaurants? We can learn about forks together. But the important stuff, the stuff that makes you who you are inside, that's perfect already." This conversation marked a turning point in their relationship. Amara began to relax more completely into their new life, and Jonathan started making decisions based on what was best for their family rather than what looked most impressive to the outside world. The biggest test came in December when Jonathan's business partners invited him to their annual holiday gala, a black tie event that was essentially required attendance for anyone in his position. Previous years, he had gone alone or with whatever woman he was casually dating at the time. This year, he wanted Amara to be part of his professional life. "But what if I embarrass you?" Amara worried as they shopped for a dress suitable for such an elegant event. "You could never embarrass me," Jonathan assured her. "You're my daughter, and I want everyone to meet you." The gala was held at the city's most exclusive hotel, with crystal chandeliers and tables set with more silverware than Amara had ever seen in one place. Jonathan introduced her proudly to his colleagues, and she charmed everyone she met with her genuine curiosity and thoughtful questions. "Your daughter is remarkable," his business partner Robert Hayes told Jonathan as they watched Amara engaged in serious conversation with the mayor's wife about environmental conservation. "She's got real presence for someone so young." "She gets that from her grandmother," Jonathan said proudly. "Rosa Johnson was one of the strongest people I ever met." The evening's most meaningful moment came when Amara approached the podium during the charity auction portion of the event. Jonathan had taught her about the cause they were supporting, a program that provided medical care to underserved communities, and she had asked if she could contribute something. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amara said into the microphone, her clear young voice carrying throughout the ballroom. "My name is Amara Reed, and I want to donate something to tonight's auction." She held up a small wooden box that Jonathan recognized from Rosa's apartment, something she had treasured but never fully explained. "This box belonged to my grandmother, who raised me before I came to live with my daddy. Inside are letters she wrote to her mother when she was young, during a time when her family didn't have much money but they had a lot of love. She taught me that taking care of each other is the most important thing we can do." Amara's voice grew stronger as she continued. "I want to auction this box because I think whoever buys it will understand that the most valuable things aren't expensive things. They're things that connect us to people who loved us and taught us how to love other people." The room was completely silent, moved by this 8-year-old's eloquence and generosity. When the auctioneer asked for opening bids, hands shot up around the room. The final bid came from Dr. Martinez, Amara's former pediatrician, who paid $5,000 for Rosa's simple wooden box. "I'll treasure this," he told Amara afterward, "because it represents the kind of love that created such a remarkable young lady." That night as they rode home in the car, Amara was unusually quiet. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" Jonathan asked. "I was thinking about how Grandma Rosa always told me that good things come to people who help others," Amara said slowly. "And I was thinking about how she was right. If I hadn't been brave enough to ask for your help that night in the rain, we never would have found each other." "That's true. And if you hadn't been kind enough to help a little girl you didn't know, I might still be trying to take care of everything by myself." "Also true. So maybe the best things in life happen when people choose to be kind to each other, even when they don't have to be." Jonathan pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to look at his daughter, this wise little girl who saw the world with such clarity and hope. "Amara, do you know what the most amazing thing about you is?" "What?" "You've been through loss and struggle and uncertainty, but instead of making you bitter or scared, it made you kinder and stronger. You're going to change the world someday." "We're going to change the world," Amara corrected with a smile. "Together as a family." As they drove home through the city lights, Jonathan realized that his daughter had given him the greatest gift possible. Not just her love, not just the joy of being her father, but a completely new understanding of what success actually meant. It wasn't about money or power or recognition. It was about this: driving home with someone you loved more than your own life, knowing that tomorrow you would wake up and have the privilege of taking care of each other. Success was Amara falling asleep against his shoulder during movies. Success was teaching her to skip stones and learning from her how to make perfect pancakes. Success was watching her bloom with confidence and opportunity while never losing the essential goodness that Rosa had nurtured in her. Success was family, and Jonathan Reed had finally found his. By spring, life had settled into a rhythm that felt both comfortable and exciting. Amara was thriving at Riverside Academy, where she had been invited to skip ahead to 4th grade due to her advanced abilities in math and science. She had also joined the Junior Scientists Club, the volunteer program at the Children's Hospital, and somehow managed to maintain her friendship with Mrs. Park by helping at the corner store on Saturday mornings. Jonathan had made changes to his work schedule that his previous self would have considered impossible. He worked from home 2 days a week, attended every school event that mattered to Amara, and had turned down 3 major business opportunities because they would have required extensive travel. His business partners had initially questioned these decisions, but the results spoke for themselves. Reed Technologies was more profitable than ever, and Jonathan's increased focus and clarity of purpose had improved his strategic thinking considerably. The real transformation, however, went deeper than schedules and success metrics. Jonathan had discovered that being Amara's father had awakened parts of himself he had never known existed. He found himself caring about issues he had never considered before: public school funding, childhood hunger, the foster care system, healthcare access for low-income families. Amara's background had opened his eyes to problems that millions of children faced every day, and his resources gave him the ability to help address those problems. "Daddy, I have an idea," Amara announced one Saturday morning over their weekly pancake breakfast. "What if we started a program to help other kids whose grandparents or parents are in the hospital?" Jonathan paused with his coffee cup halfway to his mouth. "Tell me more about this idea." "Well, when Grandma Rosa was sick, the hardest part wasn't just missing her. It was not knowing how to get to the hospital when the buses didn't run, and not having money for food from the cafeteria, and being scared because nobody explained what the doctors were doing." Amara spoke with the same organized thinking she applied to her science projects. "What if we made a special fund to help kids visit their sick family members? Like taxi vouchers and meal cards, and maybe someone who could explain medical stuff in ways kids understand." Jonathan set down his coffee cup and gave Amara his complete attention. This was exactly the kind of thinking that made him proud to be her father. "That's a brilliant idea, sweetheart. How would it work?" "We could start at General Hospital since we know Dr. Martinez and the nurses there. Kids could get help cards when their family members are admitted, and volunteers could help them understand what's happening and make sure they can visit safely." Amara's eyes brightened with excitement. "And maybe we could have a special room with books and games for when kids have to wait a long time." "Amara, this isn't just a good idea. This is the foundation for a real program that could help hundreds of children." Jonathan pulled out his phone to make notes. "What should we call it?" "The Rosa Johnson Family Support Program," Amara said without hesitation. "So Grandma Rosa's name will help other families even though she's not here anymore." Within a month, Jonathan had worked with his legal team and the hospital administration to establish exactly what Amara had envisioned. The Rosa Johnson Family Support Program provided transportation vouchers, meal assistance, child-friendly medical explanations, and a comfortable family room equipped with books, games, and educational materials. Dr. Martinez enthusiastically supported the program, having seen too many children struggle with the same challenges Amara had faced. "Your daughter has created something that should have existed years ago," he told Jonathan during the program's launch ceremony. "Sometimes it takes a child's perspective to show adults what we've been missing." The local news covered the story, fascinated by the 8-year-old girl who had turned her own difficult experience into a solution for others. Amara handled the interviews with poise beyond her years, always redirecting attention to the program's beneficiaries rather than herself. "I just remembered what it felt like to be scared and not know how to help someone I loved," she told the reporter. "If this program means other kids don't have to feel that way, then Grandma Rosa's teaching me about helping people was worth everything." The success of the Rosa Johnson program led to something Jonathan had not expected: other opportunities to make a difference. A local elementary school reached out about funding a STEM program for underserved students. A community center asked for support in creating after-school tutoring programs. Each request that came across Jonathan's desk was evaluated not just on its financial merits, but on a simple question. Would this make Amara proud? You know, Patricia Wong, his lawyer, said during one of their regular meetings, you've changed completely as a client. You used to only want to discuss investments and tax strategies. Now half our conversations are about charitable giving and community impact. Having a daughter changes your priorities, Jonathan explained. I want to leave her a world that's better than the one I inherited. The most significant change, however, was not in Jonathan's business practices or philanthropic activities. It was in the daily moments that made up their life together. Amara had taught him the joy of simple pleasures. Saturday morning pancakes, bedtime stories, helping with homework, celebrating small victories like perfect spelling tests and successful science experiments. In return, Jonathan had given Amara something Rosa could never have provided: unlimited opportunities to explore her potential. She was taking advanced mathematics courses, participating in medical research programs for gifted children, learning 3 languages and training in classical piano. But more importantly, she was doing all of this while remaining the kind, thoughtful girl Rosa had raised. The key, Jonathan had learned, was balance. Amara needed to be challenged and supported but not overwhelmed or pressured. She needed to understand her privileged position without losing her empathy for others. She needed to dream big while staying grounded in the values that made her who she was. One evening in late spring, as they sat together on the couch reviewing Amara's latest school project about sustainable energy solutions, she looked up at him with a question that had obviously been on her mind for some time. Daddy, do you think my mama would be proud of who I'm becoming? Jonathan set aside the project papers and gave Amara his full attention. I think your mama would be amazed and proud beyond words. You're everything she hoped you would be: smart, kind, brave, and determined to make the world better for other people. Sometimes I wish I could tell her about you, about how you take care of me and how we help other families together. I think she knows, Jonathan said gently. And I think she's grateful that we found each other. Do you miss her? Even though you didn't know about me then? Jonathan considered the question carefully. I miss the chance to have known her better, to have been part of your early years. But I'm grateful for the time we had because it gave me you. And I'm grateful to her for being such a good mother that she raised you to be ready for our family when the time came. Amara nodded thoughtfully. I used to be sad that I didn't have a regular family like other kids. But now I think our family is even better because we chose each other. What do you mean? Well, lots of kids just get stuck with whatever family they're born into, but you chose to be my daddy even when you didn't have to. And I chose to trust you even though I was scared. So our love is extra special because we picked each other. Jonathan pulled his daughter closer, marveling once again at her wisdom and insight. You're absolutely right. We did choose each other, and I choose you every day. Me too, Amara said contentedly. Every single day. As summer approached, Jonathan realized that they had successfully navigated the transition from strangers to family. Amara no longer seemed like a child he was responsible for, but rather like the daughter he had always been meant to have. Their conversations flowed naturally, their routines felt comfortable and established, and their love for each other had grown into something solid and permanent. The scared little girl who had mistaken his car for a taxi had become a confident young person with unlimited potential and unshakable values. The successful but lonely businessman had become a devoted father whose greatest achievement was not his financial empire but the trust and love of one remarkable child. They were ready for whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that they would face it together as a family. 1 year after that stormy night when Amara had mistaken his Mercedes for a taxi, Jonathan stood in the backyard of their new house, watching his daughter play with their golden retriever puppy, Einstein. The house was in a quiet neighborhood with excellent schools, mature trees, and a community feeling that reminded him of the best parts of his own childhood. But unlike his childhood home, this house was filled with laughter, conversation, and the comfortable chaos of a real family. Amara had chosen Einstein's name, naturally, explaining that she wanted a dog smart enough to help her with her science projects. At 9 years old, she was already working on research that impressed her teachers and participating in state-wide academic competitions. But more importantly, she had retained every bit of the kindness and empathy that Rosa had nurtured in her. "Daddy, look what Einstein learned," she called out, demonstrating the puppy's latest trick. Einstein dutifully sat, stayed, and rolled over on command, his tail wagging with pure joy. "Mrs. Park says he's the smartest dog she's ever seen, and she's met a lot of dogs at the store." Jonathan smiled, watching his daughter's easy happiness. Mrs. Park remained a fixture in their lives, having dinner with them every Sunday and serving as an unofficial grandmother figure. She had insisted on contributing to Amara's 9th birthday party, bringing homemade Korean cookies that had been a huge hit with all the children from Riverside Academy who attended. That birthday party had been everything Rosa had dreamed of for Amara. Chocolate cake, games with friends, presents carefully chosen to encourage her interest in science and reading. But the moment that had meant the most to Jonathan was when Amara had insisted on visiting Rosa's grave before the party, bringing flowers and spending a few quiet minutes telling her grandmother about her new life. "I think she would like our house," Amara had said, arranging the bouquet carefully at the headstone. "And she would really like Einstein because he's good at taking care of people who need him." The success of the Rosa Johnson Family Support Program had exceeded everyone's expectations. In its first year, the program had helped over 300 children maintain connections with hospitalized family members. Jonathan had expanded it to 4 other hospitals in the region, and there were plans to develop similar programs in other states. "You know what the best part is?" Amara had told a reporter during the program's 1-year anniversary celebration. "Kids don't have to be brave all by themselves anymore. They can get help when they need it just like I did." That interview had led to an invitation for Amara to speak at a national conference on pediatric family services. At 9 years old, she was one of the youngest keynote speakers in the conference's history, but her presentation about the importance of supporting children during family medical crises received a standing ovation from an audience of healthcare professionals and social workers. "She has a gift," the conference organizer had told Jonathan afterward. "The ability to connect with people and make complex issues feel personal and solvable. You should encourage her to develop that talent." Jonathan had no intention of pushing Amara toward any particular career path, but he could see that she had inherited something special. The ability to identify problems and envision solutions, combined with the communication skills to inspire others to action. Whether she became a doctor, a researcher, a policymaker, or something entirely different, she was going to make a significant impact on the world. Their own relationship had deepened and strengthened through all the changes of the past year. Jonathan had learned to balance his role as provider with his responsibilities as parent, understanding that Amara needed his attention and guidance more than she needed additional material advantages. They had developed traditions and inside jokes, shared interests and individual pursuits that complemented each other perfectly. "Daddy, can we start planning my project for the state science fair?" Amara asked, settling onto the porch swing beside him as Einstein curled up at their feet. "I want to do research on how hospitals can better communicate with children and families during emergency situations." "That sounds like important work," Jonathan said. "What made you think of that topic?" "Well, I was thinking about that night when I got in your car by mistake. If there had been better systems in place, maybe Grandma Rosa could have gotten help sooner, and maybe other kids wouldn't have to be as scared as I was." Amara spoke with the matter-of-fact tone she used when discussing complex subjects. "I want to study how technology and better training could make emergency care more family-friendly." Jonathan marveled, as he did almost daily, at his daughter's ability to transform personal experience into broader social understanding. "I think that's an excellent research topic. And I know some people at the hospital who would be happy to help with your data collection." "Thanks, Daddy. Oh, and I had another idea. What if we invited some of the kids from the Rosa Johnson program to our house for a barbecue this summer? Some of them have never been to a backyard party, and I think it would be fun to show them that good things can happen after scary times." "I think that's a wonderful idea," Jonathan agreed. "We could set up games in the yard, maybe have Mrs. Park teach everyone how to make her famous cookies." As they sat together in the gathering twilight, Jonathan reflected on how completely his life had changed since that stormy night 12 months ago. He had gained not just a daughter, but a sense of purpose that extended far beyond his business empire. Amara had shown him that success meant using his resources to create opportunities for others, that happiness came from relationships rather than achievements, that the most important legacy he could leave was not financial but human. "Daddy," Amara said sleepily, leaning against his shoulder in the comfortable way that had become second nature to both of them. "Do you think everything happens for a reason?" "What do you mean, sweetheart? Like, do you think I was supposed to mistake your car for a taxi that night? Do you think Grandma Rosa getting sick was part of some big plan that brought us together?" Jonathan considered the question carefully. "I don't know if everything happens for a reason, but I do think that when difficult things happen we get to choose how we respond to them. You chose to be brave and ask for help. I chose to stop and listen. Grandma Rosa chose to tell me the truth about your parentage. All of those choices led us to where we are now. So maybe the reason isn't something that was planned ahead of time, but something we create by making good choices when hard things happen? That's very wise thinking, Amara. I learned it from you and Grandma Rosa. She taught me to be brave, and you taught me that being brave can lead to really good things. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Jonathan thought about the unlikely chain of events that had brought them together. A little girl desperate to reach her dying grandmother. A businessman working too late on a stormy night. A split-second decision to help a stranger. A grandmother's courage in revealing a long-kept secret. A DNA test that confirmed what hearts had already known. Each decision point could have gone differently. Amara might have given up and gone home. Jonathan might have driven past without stopping. Rosa might have taken her secret to the grave. But instead, all of them had chosen love over fear, connection over isolation, hope over despair. Now, a year later they were a real family in every sense of the word. Not because of blood or legal documents or financial arrangements, but because they had chosen each other day after day, through the easy moments and the difficult ones, through the celebrations and the challenges. "Daddy, I need to tell you something important," Amara said, straightening up to look at him directly. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I love you more than all the stars in the sky, more than all the fish in the ocean, more than all the books in every library in the world." Jonathan's throat tightened with emotion. "I love you more than all of that too, plus more than all the atoms in the universe." "That's a lot," Amara said with satisfaction. "Good thing love doesn't take up any physical space or we'd run out of room in the whole world." As they headed inside to begin their evening routine of homework review, dinner preparation, and bedtime stories, Jonathan realized that this was exactly what happiness felt like. Not the temporary satisfaction of closing a business deal or seeing his name in the newspaper, but the deep, permanent contentment of being exactly where he belonged, with exactly the person he was meant to love and protect and learn from. The little girl who had thought his car was a taxi had become the center of his universe. The successful but empty businessman had become a devoted father whose greatest achievement was earning the trust and love of one remarkable child. Their story had begun with a mistake in a storm, but it had become the most beautiful truth of both their lives. They were family, they were home, and they were forever changed by the power of an 8-year-old's courage and a grown man's willingness to open his heart to unexpected love. As Amara fell asleep that night, she whispered the same words she had said every night for the past year. "Thank you, Grandma Rosa, for teaching me to be brave. Thank you, Daddy, for choosing to love me. Thank you for our family." And in his own room, Jonathan whispered his own gratitude to the universe, to Rosa's memory, and to the storm that had brought them together. "Thank you for giving me the privilege of being Amara's father. Thank you for showing me what really matters. Thank you for changing my life forever." Outside their house, the city continued its busy pace, full of people rushing toward their own destinies, their own unexpected encounters, their own chances to choose love over fear. But inside, a family slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they had found in each other everything they had never known they were looking for. The taxi that never came had delivered them to exactly where they needed to be: home.